What is going on, everybody? I'm Trey Herrera. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for clicking on this video and supporting my channel. And while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, let me know you're real, hit me up in the comments below. Now let's get into it. Alright, you bought a GTO, you want to mod it, you want to do all these things, but there's a couple of mods that you probably should stay away from. And number one being hot air intakes. So it's really appealing, and I've done this myself when I first bought the car because I didn't know any better. Really appealing to put a K&N drop-in filter, the aluminum piping, and think you're getting horsepower from it when you're really not. The intake, alright, first things first, LS engines run pretty hot. Our engine bays retain heat, and when you throw an open filter, compared to the stock box, you end up throwing a lot of heat through the mass airflow sensor. In return, the mass airflow sensor has a thing called the IAT, and it reads your intake temps, your intake air temp. With the intake air temps being risen to higher levels, it pulls timing on the car. With it pulling timing, you're losing a ton of power. And I've had this happen. I have a video where originally I dynoed the car and I didn't know. I thought, oh yeah, it's gonna make 400 horsepower, no problem. And that wasn't the case because I had extremely high air intake temps. Hot air intakes, don't do it. The best bet to do if you're gonna keep it in A is to do OTR, which is over the radiator intake, because you're pulling fresh air from outside and not air from the engine bay that's already hot. Throttle body spacers. Everybody knows this, hopefully everybody knows this, but on new school cars, throttle body spacers don't really do anything. Stay away from a throttle body spacer. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of time. Number 3 mod is gonna get you pretty good. You're gonna be pretty upset. It depends on if your emissions legal or smog legal. Or the next mod would be Shorty Headers. Shorty Headers are known to not make as much power as a long tube header. Mainly due to how short the pipes are, and they're not of equal length. And usually people do Shorty Headers, 1 for looks, 2 because they still have emissions regulations, so they're running cats and factory exhaust and things of that nature. So Shorty Headers are known not to make nearly as much power as a long tube header. If you're gonna do headers, do long tubes, and make sure they're either a tuned long tube or a equal length long tube with a proper collector. A quality long tube header will net you really good power. All right, this one a few people may argue with me on, but I feel like it's a strong point. Too big of a camshaft. A lot of people think bigger is better when it comes to camshafts. In a lot of regard, if you're building a car for a really big camshaft, you have supporting mods for it, your car is made for it, you're racing it in that RPM range. But when it comes to street driven, too big of camshafts really actually suck. With the bigger camshaft, you're gonna lose a lot of low end power, but you'll pick up that same power in the mid to high range RPM. So with our bigger cars, it's gonna make them feel more like a dog down low. Even though it may chop and rumble real good and all of this stuff, too big of a cam for your setup will actually negatively affect the car. So like I said, you want to match parts with parts. So if you're gonna do a bigger cam, it should probably be with a higher compression engine, milled heads to where you're gonna bring your compression down, things of that nature. You're gonna want to offset it with something. You're also gonna want to have a good size intake. Definitely when picking a cam, talk to your tuner, talk to somebody who's very knowledgeable, and go a nice in-between cam. I did that on this car. Personally, I went a slightly too small a cam for my preference. I could have went bigger, but I didn't know. You know, it's trial and error. I'm learning, and I've essentially offsetted that now with the supercharger, so it doesn't really matter. Don't go too big on the cam, especially if it's your first camshaft. Definitely do your research. All right, and the final mod I'm going to mention in this video, which there could be a ton. There's a ton of mods that are not worth it, but These I feel are really most important. Going too small a tire. Factory tires on the GTO are too small. Everybody knows this if you've been in the GTO community for a while. But factory tires are too small for the GTO in general. And a lot of people will put a factory tire on there. Now, factory tires are gonna blow them off all the time. Now, if you're going for a stance or stretch look and you wanna retain the factory size, so you go like 18-inch wheel with a 10 wide rim and you want to keep a 245 on there, that is fine because of fitment or whatever your goals are. But if you are solely trying to put the power to the pavement, the 245 is going to be really hard to keep the power to the pavement. You're going to want to get a slightly bigger tire and a better compound, but take into consideration, handle your suspension first, because most likely you go a wider tire with stock suspension, you're gonna rub, and this is a known fact. Take care of your suspension first, tire second, and have a good time. Guys, these are honorable mentions. Definitely handle the rear springs. The rear springs tend to sag a little bit in the GTO, so it's not uncommon for you to have a slightly lowered car. The factory clutch is not going to last very long, especially after modding it, so if you're going to throw headers or a cam in there, definitely switch out the factory clutch. Now what I would suggest is doing an LS7 clutch. It'll handle a bunch of power and you won't have many issues until you surpass that power. Of course you could go a much bigger clutch than that, but that would be the most budget friendly. Do a one piece or a higher end 2-piece drive shaft. The factory drive shaft, it holds. I still run a factory drive shaft with not many issues, but I did change out the carrier bearing. So if you do want to get all the power to the ground, get either 1-piece aluminum drive shaft or a higher end 2-piece drive shaft. If you're gonna get real serious about it, definitely do the axles, anti-wheel hop axles. So that would be in the G-Force actually makes them for this car, so anti-wheel hop axles, and then you won't have to worry about it. If you're a stick shift car, definitely go axle stubs. Another thing to mention is factory shifters are sloppy. Under hard shifts, they are known to break. The actual shifter shaft will break on you. Definitely upgrade the shifter. Anyway, with that being said, guys, that's a wrap for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have anything to add to this video, definitely post them below. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next one.